Mr Speaker, the residents of my constituency in South Basildon and East Thurrock are facing a triple whammy of increased council tax of 50%, reduced public services and a borrowing on £1 billion worth of emergency funding, which is 1% above base. That 1% is £10 million approximately per year that's going to the Treasury that could be spent on frontline services in Thurrock. Will the Prime Minister commit to reducing that rate so the money can go where it belongs?
Well, I thank him for his question. The last government made life even more difficult for councils needing exceptional financial support by charging a premium on borrowing. That was the wrong decision, which had a huge impact on vital services, and we will be taking a different approach. We're delivering in real terms increase on core public, on government spending power, and that will benefit his constituents.
Picture this. Just 10 months after achieving one of the biggest election victories in Labour history, Keir Starmer is apparently being given 12 months to save his political career by his MPs. We're talking about a Prime Minister who went from landslide winner to a potential leadership challenge faster than Liz Truss went from future economic genius to historical footnote. The party that spent years criticising Conservative chaos is now apparently conducting its internal version of the Hunger Games, complete with plots, counterplots, and enough backstabbing to make a Game of Thrones season finale look like a friendly neighbourhood barbecue. Today we're diving into what might be the biggest internal Labour rebellion since, well, ever. Starmer's honeymoon period is officially over, and it's ended with about as much grace as a drunk tourist falling off a night bus in Magaluf. Let's paint the picture here. Just when Starmer thought he could bask in the glory of his diplomatic hat-trick with the US, India and the EU, you know, the kind of international success that usually gets Prime Ministers feeling pretty pleased with themselves, his own MPs have decided to remind him that politics, like gravity, always brings you back down to earth. And in this case, it's less of a gentle landing and more of a face-first collision with the pavement of political reality. The rebellion centres around two particularly controversial benefit cuts: slashing personal independence payments for disabled people and trimming universal credit for those off work due to sickness. Now, if you're thinking this sounds like exactly the kind of policy that would make Labour MPs break out in hives, you'd be absolutely right. It's like watching a vegetarian restaurant suddenly announce they're adding a meatloaf special to the menu. Technically possible, but guaranteed to cause an existential crisis among the regulars. But here's where it gets really spicy. Behind the scenes, loyalty to Starmer and Chancellor Rachel Reeves is cracking faster than a dropped iPhone screen. MPs are too embarrassed to post anything with Starmer's face on social media because, and I quote, "Anything I share with him gets a ton of abuse." Imagine being so unpopular that your own team won't use your photo in their Instagram stories. That's not just political toxicity, that's political kryptonite. The Parliamentary Labour Party meeting on Monday evening apparently went about as well as you'd expect. One MP described the atmosphere as so tense that even the planned questions, you know, those soft, bold queries designed to make the leadership look good, had to be prefaced with acknowledgements of how dire the situation was. It's like watching someone try to compliment a haircut that's gone catastrophically wrong. Prime Minister, given how challenging these times are and how difficult your positions become, would you like to tell us about your wonderful policies? Now, let's talk numbers, because this is where things get properly terrifying for Team Starmer. We've got 110 MPs who signed a letter of warning. They won't support the PIP changes without proper consultation. That's separate from the roughly 40 rebels who previously complained about the measures.
We're the party who have said that we would cut the winter fuel allowance for the richest pensioners. We're the party that said we would means test that benefit to save money, something which on the other side of the House you haven't supported. So the reality is we're the party who are willing to take tough decisions to get the welfare bill down.
Do the math and you're looking at around 150 potential rebels, with a working majority of 165. That's not just uncomfortable, that's the political equivalent of playing Jenga while blindfolded during an earthquake. The government's response to this mounting rebellion has been about as subtle as a brick through a window. They've delayed a planned ministerial reshuffle until after the crucial vote in June. They are dangling the prospect of a motion in front of wavering MPs like treats in front of hungry puppies. It's politics at its most transactional. Essentially, they are saying, nice rebellion you got there, shame if something happened to your career prospects. Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, has emerged as something of a hero figure among the rebels. He's been pushing for wealth taxes instead of welfare cuts, which has earned her praise from MPs who say Rayner is one of us, but complain she's being frozen out.
It's the two-child benefit cap. We heard Keir Starmer talking about it just this week and saying that he's not immune to what he calls a very powerful argument to scrap it. Are you immune to that argument? Are you, does it cause you any pain to say that you won't be removing it?
It's a Tory policy and we voted against it. And I am passionate about tackling child poverty. That's why we have a commitment to a bold and ambitious cross-government strategy to tackle child poverty in our manifesto, and that starts with free breakfast clubs in every primary school, a big warm homes initiative to make sure homes are insulated, our plans for a genuine living wage, our back to work plan, our plan to create more jobs. Look, I know there's much further that we need to go, but we are also honest with people that we won't make promises that we can't keep or we can't show how we'll deliver. That is a real priority for me, tackling child poverty. We've set out.
It's like watching the cool older sibling getting grounded for standing up to the parents. Technically, she's Deputy PM, but that doesn't count for much when you're going against the Treasury's game plan. Speaking of the Treasury, MPs are pointing fingers directly at Rachel Reeves, suggesting she's got too much control over policy direction. One MP complained that the Treasury is being allowed to dictate too much and is out of touch with the PLP and the country. It's a fascinating power struggle. Imagine if your accountant suddenly started making all the major life decisions in your household, including what you eat for dinner and who you're allowed to be friends with. But the criticism isn't stopping at Reeves either. Even Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McWeeny, is getting some fire with Labour insiders questioning whether his political judgment is as sharp as people thought. When your own party starts questioning your top advisor's competence, that's not political turbulence. That's a full-blown crisis of confidence in mission control.
80 days in government, and we've been busy. A devolution revolution, a bill to deliver new rights and protections for renters, planning reform to get Britain building, a landmark review to fix our NHS, a child poverty task force, 100 new specialist officers to tackle criminals, an end to one-word OUSTED inspections, ending the ban on onshore wind and fines for bosses who pollute our waters, bills to kickstart Great British Energy and to prevent another Liz Truss disastrous mini-budget, put buses in local hands and bring rail into public ownership. Conference change has begun.
The government did throw a bone to the rebels this week by signalling a U-turn on the winter fuel allowance cuts. But the response from MPs has been about as enthusiastic as a root canal patient. One MP's reaction was priceless. This would have been useful 8 months ago. It's the political equivalent of apologising for burning down someone's house after you've already moved in and redecorated the damage. And as one MP put it, she said, "This is what the Tories warn us about Labour, that they would do something like this." So the trust has been broken. The winter fuel allowance U-turn might have been welcomed across Labour benches, but it's done absolutely nothing to appease the disability benefit rebels. These MPs aren't just concerned about political optics, they're talking about life and death consequences. One MP revealed that constituents have told them they won't be here if the PIP reforms go through. That's not an exaggeration. That's why MPs are genuinely worried about the link between benefit cuts and suicide rates.
I think Keir Starmer and Labour in general's views on reform are fascinating, not just because of where he was in Scotland, but actually because of where both elections are happening next year in 2026, in Wales and in Scotland. Reform are beginning to be a very real force within Wales, and it very much looks like it's possible that they will top the polls in Wales, even beating Labour, who have historically treated Wales as a one-party state over the course of the last 25 years of devolution. Reform are putting real pressure on Labour, who are already feeling pressure because the reason that people were voting for them last year is because of the abject failure of the Conservative Party and government to get a grip on immigration. That was an enormous part of the reason people fled from the Conservative Party, which, because they fled to both Reform and Labour, resulted in Labour winning such a large majority. Now, he needs to press the point home in order to secure Labour votes in Wales and in Scotland, that Labour are able to deal with the issues that Reform keeps raising, which is what he's trying to get at by saying that Nigel Farage is not the answer to the issues that he recognises are issues. But I would argue that as long as Ed Miliband sits in Keir Starmer's cabinet, Reform are going to have a foothold in Scotland because of those North Sea jobs that Nigel Farage is talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great response from Nigel, wasn't it? To go in on the, bearing in mind this is a Scottish Labour Party conference, to go in on the one area that's directly affecting Scotland.
Absolutely. I think the oil and gas licenses in the North Sea issue is one where I think Ed Miliband is playing really dangerous politics with the energy security of the United Kingdom as a whole. And because the SNP are sort of fumbling the ball a little bit, there is an opportunity for an extreme party, by comparison to the more centrist ground, perhaps, of the last.
The real-world impact of these proposed changes is stark. The PIP reforms are expected to particularly hit people with mental health conditions that are considered the most severe. MPs are raising concerns about restricting support for vulnerable people without first reforming mental health services. As one put it, without the reform of mental health services, we can't take away people's support. If not, it will lead to suicides. The Department for Work and Pensions, led by Liz Kendall, is desperately trying to show they're listening. After the winter fuel announcement, Kendall's team was spotted on the House of Commons terrace, making themselves available to chat with Labour MPs. It's political damage control in real time. Imagine your PR team camping out in the office lobby after a major scandal, hoping to catch people for impromptu crisis meetings. But the message isn't getting through. When asked if Number 10 was listening to rebel concerns, one backbencher was brutally direct. No, and this is one of the biggest frustrations. I don't think they're listening at all on PIP. That's not just political disagreement, that's a complete breakdown in communication between leadership and backbenchers, going back to Angela Rayner. She has apparently been subjected to what's been described as a poisonous briefing campaign from rivals in government, with leaked memos and stories about potential demotion. So while MPs are plotting against Starmer, his government is conducting internal warfare against his deputy. It's like watching a political soap opera, where everyone is plotting against everyone else while pretending to work together for the cameras. The speculation about a reshuffle with Rachel Reeves's job potentially on the line adds another layer to this governmental dysfunction. When your Chancellor's position is under threat just months after a budget and your Deputy PM is facing briefing campaigns from within your government, you're not managing the cabinet, you're refereeing a knife fight with the participants wearing suits. The electoral context makes this internal warfare even more damaging. According to recent polling, Labour is now 8 points behind Reform UK, which is like being overtaken in a race by someone who only started running yesterday. The feedback from the doorstep reveals visceral personal hatred for both Starmer and Reeves, which is a kind of voter sentiment that usually ends political careers rather than building them. One MP's question, how did the Tories do it? There has to be a way to replace the leader perfectly captures the desperation apparently gripping parts of the Labour Party. When your own parliamentarians are studying Conservative leadership challenge procedures for inspiration, you know things have gotten seriously bad. It's like asking your divorce lawyer for advice while you're still on your honeymoon. Overall, the reported timeline of 12 months given to Starmer creates fascinating political dynamics because it's long enough for Starmer to potentially turn things around, but short enough to maintain pressure for immediate improvement. May 2026 becomes a deadline rather than just another set of elections, which changes how every policy decision and political move will be evaluated. When your party is essentially giving you performance targets with specific deadlines, you're not governing with confidence, you're managing on probation. Looking ahead, this internal plotting creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where speculation about leadership challenges undermines the leader's authority, making challenges more likely. If you enjoyed this political firestorm, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating political content.